The frozen February wind cut through Olivia Barrett's shawl like a knife as she stood on the platform of Cottonwood Springs Station, clutching her twin babies close to her chest. Fear and desperation clawed at her heart as she scanned the empty horizon for the man who had promised to marry her, a man she'd never met but had exchanged letters with for months. The station master approached with a sympathetic look that told her everything before he even spoke. "Madam, the last train's gone for the day. Mr. Holloway ain't shown up, and I've got word he left town 3 days ago." Sold his claim and disappeared. Olivia's legs nearly buckled beneath her. 22 years old, with 6-month-old twins and abandoned in a strange town in Wyoming Territory, 1878. Her breath formed clouds in the bitter air as the reality of her situation descended upon her. Is there a hotel where I might stay?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady as little Emma fussed against her shoulder. The station master removed his hat, revealing a balding head. "The hotel's full up with the cattle buyers in town. Boarding house, too." He hesitated. "There's the widow Sawyer who sometimes takes in strays, but she's 3 miles out of town." 3 miles? With 2 babies and a trunk. In the cold. Olivia nodded numbly. "I could send my boy to ask around town," he offered, his weathered face creasing with concern. That's when she heard the sound of horse hooves approaching. A tall man on a chestnut mare came into view, his broad shoulders dusted with snow, a black Stetson pulled low over his eyes. "Ah, that's Donovan Reeves," the station master said with obvious relief. "Best horse breeder in the territory. If anyone can help, it'll be him." The rider dismounted in one fluid motion, revealing his full height, well over 6 feet. As he approached, Olivia could see a face weathered by sun and wind, with piercing blue eyes that assessed her situation quickly. "Mr. Jennings," he nodded to the station master before turning his attention to Olivia. "Madam, Mr. Reeves, this here's Miss Barrett. She's come all the way from Boston to marry Holloway, but seems he's done run off." The cowboy's jaw tightened. "Holloway left town 3 days ago. Heard he was headed to Montana Territory." Fresh tears welled in Olivia's eyes, but she fought them back. She wouldn't break down in front of strangers. Emma began to cry in earnest now, and her brother Ethan joined in, their wails echoing across the empty station. Donovan Reeves looked at the twins, then back at Olivia's face. Something shifted in his expression. "You got somewhere to go, madam?" "No," she answered honestly, too tired for pretense. "I don't." He was quiet for a long moment, then nodded as if he'd made a decision. "I've got a ranch 5 miles from here. It ain't much, but there's a spare room. You and your little ones can stay there until you figure things out. I couldn't possibly impose. It's getting dark, and it's 15 degrees with a storm coming," he cut in, his voice matter of fact. "Those babies need shelter." The station master nodded encouragingly. "Reeves is good people, Miss Barrett. Known him for years." Olivia looked at the imposing cowboy. There was something in his eyes, a steadiness that made her believe she could trust him, despite everything her upbringing had taught her about propriety. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves," she finally said. He nodded once, then turned to the station master. "Her trunk gonna fit in your wagon, Jennings? I can bring it out tomorrow." "Sure thing. Then I'll take Miss Barrett and her young uns now." He turned to Olivia. "You ever ride a horse, madam?" "Not since I was a girl." "Well, Rose here is gentle as they come. I'll help you up." Before she could protest, he'd approached, carefully taking Emma from her arms. "I'll hold her while you mount up, then hand them both to you." His large, calloused hands cradled her daughter with surprising tenderness. Emma immediately stopped crying, staring up at the bearded stranger with curious eyes. "She likes you," Olivia said, surprised. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Animals and babies. Only creatures with sense enough to judge a man proper." He helped her onto the horse, then carefully handed up both twins, making sure she had them secure before mounting behind her. As they rode away from the station, Olivia couldn't help but wonder what providence had brought her to this moment seated on a horse with a stranger, her babies clutched to her chest, heading into the unknown Wyoming wilderness. Donovan Reeves kept a respectful distance, his arms reaching around her only enough to hold the reins. Still, she could feel the solid warmth of him at her back, a stark contrast to the biting cold. "Mr. Holloway," he said after they'd ridden in silence for a while. "He the father of your children?" Olivia stiffened. "No, my late husband is." died of influenza last summer, shortly after they were born. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. The sincerity in his voice surprised her. With no family left in Boston, Mr. Holloway's letters seemed like divine providence. He wrote that he wanted a family, that he had a good homestead. Her voice trailed off, embarrassment washing over her. How naive she must seem. Some men talk a good game in letters, Donovan said simply. Reality's often different. They crested a small rise, and he pointed ahead. That's my place. In the fading light, Olivia could make out a substantial log house with smoke curling from the chimney, nestled against a backdrop of pine-covered hills. A large barn stood nearby, with several corrals spreading out from it. It wasn't a crude homesteader's cabin, but a proper ranch. It's lovely, she said, genuine appreciation in her voice. He made a noncommittal sound. Been working on it for 8 years now. Started with nothing but that barn and a dream. As they approached, a lantern light appeared in the doorway, and a woman stepped onto the porch. For a moment, Olivia's heart sank, thinking perhaps she'd misunderstood and Donovan Reeves was married after all. That's Mrs. Feeney, he said, as if reading her thoughts. She comes in 3 days a week to cook and keep house. Lives in town with her son. They reached the house, and Donovan dismounted in one smooth motion, then reached up to help Olivia down. As her feet touched the ground, her legs nearly gave out from the cold and the strain of the journey. His strong hand steadied her. Careful now, he murmured, his breath forming clouds between them. Mr. Reeves, Mrs. Feeney called, a plump woman with gray-streaked hair. Didn't expect you back so soon. And with company. Mrs. Feeney, this is Miss Barrett and her twins. They'll be staying with us for a spell. Miss Barrett, this is Mrs. Feeney. The housekeeper's eyes widened at the sight of the babies, but to her credit, she recovered quickly. Well then, you poor dear must be frozen through. Come inside where it's warm. Olivia followed her into the house, instantly grateful for the heat from the large stone fireplace. The main room was simple but comfortable, with sturdy furniture and a few touches that spoke of care. A colorful quilt draped over a chair, a shelf of books, a painting of horses on the wall. Let me show you to the spare room, Mrs. Feeney said, leading Olivia down a short hallway. It ain't been used in some time, but the sheets are clean. The bedroom was small but tidy, with a bed, a chest of drawers, and a rocking chair in the corner. The rocking chair was Mr. Reeves' mother's, Mrs. Feeney explained. She passed on 5 years back. Good for soothing babies, I expect. It's perfect, thank you, Olivia said, emotion catching in her throat. After the trauma of the day, this simple kindness was almost too much to bear. I'll fetch some hot water so you can freshen up. Supper will be ready soon. Just roast and potatoes, nothing fancy. That sounds wonderful. Olivia hadn't eaten since early morning on the train. When Mrs. Feeney left, Olivia sank onto the bed, the twins still bundled against her. For the first time since arriving at the empty station, she allowed herself a moment of despair. What was she going to do? Her meager savings would last perhaps a month at a boarding house, if she could find one. After that, a soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Miss Barrett. Donovan's deep voice came through the wood. Mrs. Feeney's bringing water. I brought a basin that might work as a cradle for tonight. Tomorrow I can fashion something better. Olivia opened the door to find him holding a large wooden wash basin lined with what looked like a folded quilt. Mr. Reeves, you're too kind. He shrugged, setting the makeshift cradle on the floor. Got plenty of wood to make a proper one. Just need a day or so. His thoughtfulness touched her deeply. You don't even know us. His blue eyes met hers. Know enough. Nobody deserves to be stranded with little ones in February. He paused, especially not by a coward like Holloway. There was a quiet anger in his voice that told Olivia he took such abandonment personally. Well, I'm very grateful, she said simply. Mrs. Feeney appeared with a pitcher of steaming water. Here you are, dear. Supper in 20 minutes. Left alone, Olivia quickly washed herself and the twins, changing them into clean clothes from her small travel bag. Both babies were unusually quiet, as if sensing the gravity of their situation. It's going to be all right, she whispered to them, not entirely believing it herself. We're safe for tonight. When she emerged for supper, she found Donovan standing by the fireplace, freshly washed, his dark hair still damp at the temples. He'd changed into a clean flannel shirt, and without his heavy coat, she could see how broad his shoulders truly were. "The little one's asleep?" he asked. "For now. They're exhausted from the journey." "Sit, sit," Mrs. Feeney urged, placing a steaming plate before her. "You need to keep up your strength, especially if you're feeding those babies." The meal was simple but delicious: tender roast beef, potatoes, and carrots. Olivia hadn't realized how hungry she was until the first bite touched her lips. "Mr. Reeves tells me you've come all the way from Boston," Mrs. Feeney said, sitting down with her own plate. "Yes. After my husband died, there was nothing left for me there. And that Holloway fellow just up and left." Mrs. Feeney clucked her tongue disapprovingly. "Some men ain't worth the bullet it would take to shoot them." "Mrs. Feeney," Donovan warned. "Well, it's true, and you know it." The housekeeper turned back to Olivia. "What did you do in Boston, dear?" "I was a teacher before I married." "Elementary school." Donovan looked up with interest. "A teacher? We've been trying to get one out here for years. The closest school's in town, too far for most ranch children." "Are there many children in the area?" Olivia asked, a small spark of hope kindling within her. "Between the ranches and farms, probably 15 or 20 school-aged children with no proper education," he replied. "Nearest teacher is in Cottonwood Springs, and that's too far for daily travel." Mrs. Feeney nodded vigorously. "Been saying for years we need a school out this way. The Bennett place has 5 young uns alone." The conversation continued, and Olivia found herself telling them about her life in Boston, her brief marriage to Thomas, and his sudden death from influenza that had swept through their neighborhood. She explained how she'd begun corresponding with Richard Holloway after answering his advertisement for a mail-order bride. "His letters were so kind, so full of dreams for a family," she said, staring into her coffee cup. "He wrote that he wanted to be a father to my children, that he had a good claim and was building a life here." She shook her head. "I was a fool to believe him." "You weren't a fool," Donovan said firmly. "Holloway was the fool, throwing away a chance at a real family." His words warmed something inside her that had been cold for a very long time. After dinner, Donovan excused himself to check on the horses, and Mrs. Feeney began clearing the dishes. "I should help," Olivia offered, rising. "Nonsense. You tend to those babies. I heard one starting to fuss." Sure enough, Emma's cry came from the bedroom. Olivia hurried to comfort her daughter, finding both twins awake in their makeshift bed. She changed them both, then settled into the rocking chair to nurse Emma first. As she rocked, gazing down at her daughter's face, the reality of her situation pressed in on her again. What was she going to do? Even if there was need for a teacher, how could she possibly manage with 2 infants? A soft knock on the door frame startled her. Donovan stood there, his eyes carefully averted. "Sorry to disturb you, madam. Just wanted to say Mrs. Feeney's gone home, but she'll be back tomorrow morning. If you need anything in the night, my room's across the hall." "Thank you, Mr. Reeves." He nodded, about to turn away, then hesitated. "Miss Barrett, I've been thinking. My foreman's wife, Sarah, she might be able to help with the little ones during the day if you were interested in teaching. They've got a girl of their own, about 2 years old." Olivia's heart skipped. "You're serious about the teaching position?" "Dead serious. Been needing a teacher out this way for years. The ranchers would pay, and I've got an old bunkhouse could be fixed up as a schoolroom." He leaned against the doorframe. "It wouldn't be much, not like Boston schools, but it would be something. Mr. Reeves, that would be wonderful." For the first time, she saw him smile fully, transforming his weathered face. "Don't thank me yet. Might come to nothing, but I'll speak to some folks tomorrow." After he left, Olivia finished nursing the twins and tucked them into their makeshift bed. For the first time since stepping off the train, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps there was a place for her here after all. She fell asleep to the sound of the wind in the pines and the distant, comforting creak of Donovan checking the barn one last time before turning in. Morning came with golden lights streaming through curtains Olivia hadn't noticed the night before simple cotton, but with a hand-embroidered pattern of pine trees along the edges. The twins were still sleeping peacefully, their tiny chests rising and falling in perfect rhythm. The smell of coffee and bacon drifted through the house. Olivia quickly dressed, pinning her honey-blonde hair into a simple knot. Her good dresses were still in her trunk, but her traveling outfit would have to do. In the kitchen, she found not Mrs. Feeney but Donovan himself, competently frying bacon and flipping hotcakes on a cast-iron griddle. "Good morning," he said, glancing up. "Coffee's hot." "You cook," she said, surprised. A corner of his mouth twitched. "Been fending for myself a long time, Miss Barrett. Mrs. Feeney only comes 3 days a week. Rest of the time, it's my own cooking or going hungry." I'm impressed. She poured herself a cup of coffee from the pot on the stove. "And please, call me Olivia. After your kindness. Miss Barrett seems overly formal." He nodded, sliding a plate of hotcakes and bacon toward her. "Then I'm Donovan. Or Don, to friends." "Are we friends then?" she asked, accepting the plate. His blue eyes met hers. "I'd like to think so." Something warm unfurled in Olivia's chest at his words. She took a bite of the hotcakes, surprised by how good they were. "These are delicious. My mother's recipe. One of the few things I remember her teaching me." He sat across from her with his own plate. "Your little ones still sleeping?" "Yes, thankfully. They usually wake with the sun, but the journey must have tired them." "What are their names?" "Emma and Ethan." "Emma's older by 20 minutes. Good, strong names." He took a sip of coffee. "I rode out at first light, spoke to my foreman about his wife helping with the twins. She's agreeable, said she'd be happy for the company." "That's very kind, but I wouldn't want to impose. It's not an imposition. Sarah's alone most days while Jacob works. Their place is just beyond that rise." He pointed out the window to a small hill. "I also sent word to a few of the neighboring ranchers about a possible school. Figure we could meet tomorrow, if you're willing." Olivia's heart raced. Things were moving so quickly. Yes, of course I'm willing." "Good." He finished his coffee. "Your trunk should arrive this afternoon. Jennings is sending it out with the supply wagon." "Thank you. I'm afraid the twins, and I have only what I packed for the journey." Donovan studied her for a moment. "You planning to go back to Boston?" The question caught her off guard. I don't know. There's nothing for me there anymore. My parents are gone, and after Thomas died." She trailed off, remembering the lonely rooms they'd shared, the pitying looks from neighbors. "No, I don't think so." He nodded, as if her answer confirmed something for him. "Wyoming's hard country, especially for a woman alone. But folks here look out for each other. It's not Boston, but it has its own kind of beauty." "I can see that already," she said, glancing out the window at the snow-covered landscape, pine trees standing sentinel against the brilliant blue sky. A small cry from the bedroom interrupted them. "That'll be Ethan," Olivia said, rising. "He's always the first to wake. Go on. I'll clean up here." Olivia found both twins awake, Ethan fussing loudly while Emma watched with curious eyes. She changed them both, then brought them out to the main room. Donovan looked up from washing the dishes, his eyes softening at the sight of the babies. "Morning, little ones." To Olivia's surprise, both twins quieted, staring at the big man with fascination. "They seem to like you," she observed. "Like I said, babies and animals." He dried his hands on a towel, then approached cautiously. "May I?" Olivia nodded, and he carefully took Ethan from her arms. The baby immediately reached for his beard, grasping a fistful. "Strong grip," Donovan chuckled, not pulling away despite what must have been painful tugging. "He'll make a fine horseman someday." "You're good with children," Olivia said, bouncing Emma gently. A shadow crossed his face. "Had a younger brother once. Practically raised him after our mother died." The past tense told her all she needed to know. "I'm sorry." He shrugged, but she could see the old pain in his eyes. War takes many things from many people. Before she could respond, the sound of a wagon approaching drew their attention. Donovan handed Ethan back to her and moved to the window. "That'll be Jacob and Sarah now," he said. "Told them to come by this morning so you could meet them." Moments later, a knock came at the door. Donovan opened it to reveal a young couple, the man tall and lean with sandy hair, the woman petite with kind brown eyes. A toddler girl with blonde curls clung to her mother's skirts. "Olivia, this is Jacob and Sarah Miller and their daughter Lily. Jacob's my foreman, runs this place almost as well as I do. Probably better, though I'd never admit it to his face." Jacob grinned, removing his hat. "Don's too kind. Place would fall apart without him." He extended his hand to Olivia. "Pleased to meet you, madam." "And these must be your twins," Sarah said, stepping forward with a warm smile. "They're beautiful." "Thank you," Olivia replied, immediately warming to the young woman. "This is Emma and Ethan." They're just a bit younger than my nephew's twins, Sarah said, reaching out to touch Emma's hand. I've had plenty of practice. Sarah's offered to help with the little ones during the day, Donovan explained. Their place is just over that hill, close enough to walk in good weather. I couldn't possibly ask. You're not asking. I'm offering, Sarah interrupted gently. Truth is, I get lonely with just Lily for company all day. Having adult conversation and more little ones around would be a blessing. Jacob nodded. Sarah was a midwife's assistant back in Ohio. She's got away with babies. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes at their kindness. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Sarah encouraged. At least try it for a few days. Yes, then. Thank you. After the Millers left, promising to return the next day, Olivia turned to Donovan. Everyone is being so kind. I don't understand why. He was silent for a moment, gazing out the window. Out here, people survive by helping each other. It's not kindness so much as the way of things. He turned to face her. Winter storm, lost cattle, illness. We all face the same challenges. No one makes it alone. Still, you've gone above and beyond for a complete stranger. Something flickered in his eyes. Maybe I know what it's like to be alone in a strange place with nowhere to turn. He cleared his throat. I need to check the horses. Make yourself at home. As he strode out the door, Olivia wondered about the pain she'd glimpsed beneath his stoic exterior. This quiet, strong man had depths she was only beginning to understand. The next morning brought 6 ranchers to Donovan's home, all eager to discuss the possibility of a school for their children. Olivia, dressed in her best blue dress retrieved from her trunk, presented her qualifications and her vision for education on the frontier. I believe children need both practical knowledge and exposure to ideas beyond their immediate experience, she explained. Reading, writing, and arithmetic, yes, but also history, science, and literature. The men exchanged glances, clearly impressed. Frank Bennett, a burly man with 5 children, spoke first. Miss Barrett, we've been hoping for a teacher for 3 years now. My oldest can barely write his name. My girls have been learning from their mother, added William Parker, a thin, serious man. But Martha's time is limited with the new baby and all. One by one, they pledged support money for supplies, labor to convert the old bunkhouse, even books from their own limited collections. It's settled then, Donovan concluded. We'll start work on the schoolhouse tomorrow. Should be ready in 2 weeks, weather permitting. As the men filed out, shaking her hand and expressing their gratitude, Olivia felt a growing sense that perhaps fate had guided her to this place after all. Donovan remained by the fireplace, watching her with an unreadable expression. What is it? She asked when they were alone. You've given those men hope, he said quietly. Education means a future for their children beyond what they themselves have known. It's what I was trained to do. No. He shook his head. Most teachers would look at this place and see only hardship. You see possibility. His perception startled her. Perhaps because I need to see possibility right now. His expression softened. You'll find it here. I promise you that. The following days fell into a rhythm. Each morning, Sarah would arrive to help with the twins while Olivia walked to the bunkhouse to oversee its transformation into a schoolroom. The men worked diligently, adding windows for light, building simple desks and benches, and constructing a proper blackboard. Donovan was often there, directing the work with quiet efficiency. Olivia noticed how the other men deferred to him naturally, respecting both his judgment and his willingness to work alongside them. In the evenings, after the twins were asleep, Olivia and Donovan would sit by the fire, talking about the school, the ranch, and gradually, their pasts. How did you come to Wyoming? She asked one night, a week after her arrival. He stared into the flames, silent for so long she thought he might not answer. After the war, I couldn't settle back in Virginia. Too many ghosts. His voice was low, measured. Headed west with nothing but my horse and the clothes on my back. Worked cattle drives, broke horses, saved every penny. 8 years ago, I had enough to buy this land. You built all this yourself? He nodded. Not all at once. Barn first, then a one-room cabin. Added to the house as I could afford it. It's impressive, she said sincerely. It's a start. He looked around the room. Always meant it to be a family home someday. The implication hung in the air between them. Olivia felt her cheeks warm. What about you? He asked, changing the subject. How did a Boston schoolteacher end up answering a mail-order bride advertisement? Olivia sighed. After Thomas died, I had few options. Teaching positions were scarce, and those available paid barely enough for one person to live on, let alone three. My savings were dwindling. She paused. Thomas's parents offered to take the twins, but not me. They never approved of me too educated, too independent. And you couldn't bear to be separated from your children, Donovan supplied. No, they're all I have left. She twisted her hands in her lap. Richard's letters seemed like an answer to prayer. He wrote so eloquently about wanting a family, about building a life together. Some men are better with words than actions. Yes, well, I've learned that lesson thoroughly now. She attempted a smile, but it faltered. He was a fool, Donovan said suddenly, his voice hard. Any man would be fortunate to have you and those children in his life. The intensity in his blue eyes made her breath catch. Thank you, she whispered. Neither spoke for a long moment, the crackling of the fire the only sound in the room. Finally, Donovan stood. It's getting late. Tomorrow's a big day with the roof going on the schoolhouse. Yes, of course, Olivia said, rising as well. Good night, Donovan. Good night, Olivia. As she lay in bed that night, listening to the twins' soft breathing, Olivia acknowledged the truth she'd been avoiding for days. She was falling in love with Donovan Reeves, his quiet strength, his kindness, the way his rare smiles transformed his face. But did he feel the same? And even if he did, could she trust her heart again so soon after Richard's betrayal? 2 weeks after Olivia's arrival, the schoolhouse was complete. Simple but sturdy, with large windows to capture the sunlight and a wood stove for warmth, it stood ready for its first students. We'll start Monday, Olivia told the gathered families during the informal opening celebration. Children of all ages are welcome. What about payment? Frank Bennett asked. We've all agreed to contribute, but I've spoken with the territorial government, Donovan interrupted. They've agreed to provide a small stipend for a qualified teacher, now that we have a proper schoolhouse. The rest will make up between us. Olivia stared at him in surprise. He hadn't mentioned contacting the territorial officials. Later, as the families departed, she confronted him. You didn't tell me about the government stipend. He shrugged. Wasn't sure they'd agree. Didn't want to raise hopes unnecessarily. That's wonderful news. It means the school can be sustainable. That's the idea. He hesitated. Means you could stay, if you wanted to. The moment hung between them, full of unspoken possibility. I would like that, she said softly. His eyes searched hers. The twins seemed to have settled in well. Yes, Sarah has been a godsend. And they adore you. It was true. Both babies lit up whenever Donovan entered a room, reaching for him with eager hands. He had taken to spending time with them each evening, his large hands gentle as he played with them on the floor or read them simple stories. They're easy to adore back, he said, a rare softness in his voice. Olivia gathered her courage. Donovan, I miss Barrett, Sarah called, approaching with Lily in tow. We're heading home now. The twins are asleep in the wagon. Jacob will drive you back to Donovan's. The moment broken, Olivia nodded. Thank you, Sarah. I'll be right there. When she turned back, Donovan had already moved away, speaking with one of the ranchers about some matter concerning cattle. The school's opening day dawned bright and clear. 17 children ranging from 5 to 16 years gathered in the new schoolhouse, their faces a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Olivia, dressed in her most professional attire, with the twins safely in Sarah's care, stood before them with confidence born of years of teaching experience. Welcome to our school, she began. I know some of you have had some education before, while others are just beginning. We'll work together to ensure everyone learns at their own pace. By the end of that first day, Olivia was exhausted but exhilarated. The children were eager to learn, respectful, and quick to help one another. It was everything she'd hoped for in a classroom. As she gathered her materials, the door opened, and Donovan stepped in. Thought you might want a ride home, he said, his eyes taking in the newly arranged classroom. How was the first day? Wonderful, she replied honestly. These children are bright and motivated. Some of the older ones have gaps in their education, but they're determined to learn. You look happy, he observed. I am. I'd forgotten how much I love teaching. He nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. It shows. The children are lucky to have you. They rode back to the ranch together on his horse, Olivia seated sideways in front of him. The closeness was both comforting and unsettling, his strong arms around her as he held the reins. At the ranch, Sarah greeted them with the twins, who had apparently been perfect angels all day. They're natural charmers, Sarah laughed as Emma gurgled happily in her arms. Lily adores them already. After Sarah left, Olivia fed and bathed the twins, then settled them in the cradle. Donovan had crafted a beautiful piece with curved rockers and carefully sanded edges. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found him preparing dinner, a stew that filled the house with savory aromas. "You didn't have to cook," she protested. "I could have managed. You've been teaching all day. Besides, I like cooking." He stirred the pot. "My mother always said a man should know how to feed himself properly. She sounds like a wise woman." She was. He was quiet for a moment. "She'd have liked you." The simple statement warmed Olivia to her core. "Tell me about her." As they ate, Donovan spoke of his childhood in Virginia, his mother's strength after his father's early death, her determination to keep the small farm going while raising two boys alone. "She taught us both to read, to cipher, to appreciate beauty in small things." He gazed into the fire. "When the war came, I enlisted, thinking to protect what she'd built. My brother followed 2 years later, against her wishes. He was only 17. Olivia sensed the story's tragic end. "You don't have to tell me." "No, I want to." He met her eyes. "He died at Petersburg, just weeks before the surrender. By the time I made it home, my mother had sold the farm to pay debts. She never recovered from losing him. Died 2 years later." "I'm so sorry, Donovan. It was a long time ago." He straightened. "Point is, I understand loss. And starting over." "Yes," she said softly. "I believe you do." Something shifted between them in that moment, a deeper understanding, a recognition of shared experience despite their different paths. Later, as she prepared for bed, Olivia found herself thinking about how quickly Donovan had become essential to her life, to her sense of possibility. It frightened her, this growing dependence, this burgeoning love for a man she'd known mere weeks. Yet when she looked at her sleeping children, she knew they deserved a chance at a real family, not a hasty arrangement with a stranger who'd abandoned them before even meeting them, but something built on genuine affection and respect. The question was whether Donovan wanted the same. Spring arrived in fits and starts, with warm days followed by sudden snowstorms. The school thrived, with the children making remarkable progress. Olivia found herself falling into a comfortable routine, teaching during the day while Sarah cared for the twins, evenings spent with Donovan, sharing meals and conversation. She had moved from his spare room to the small cabin where Jacob and Sarah had lived before building their own place. It gave her independence while keeping her close to Donovan's ranch and the schoolhouse. The twins were growing rapidly, now 9 months old and beginning to crawl, exploring their world with boundless curiosity. Donovan spent time with them whenever possible, bringing small wooden toys he carved himself, reading to them, letting them tug on his beard with delighted giggles. Watching him with her children made Olivia's heart ache with a bittersweet longing. He would make a wonderful father, yet he had never spoken of wanting a family of his own, had never indicated that his feelings for her went beyond friendship and concern. One evening in late April, Olivia sat on the porch of her cabin, enjoying the sunset after putting the twins to bed. The air was cool but not cold, fragrant with the scent of new growth and distant rain. The sound of hoofbeats announced Donovan's arrival. He rode up, dismounting with his usual grace, and tied his horse to the hitching post. "Evening," he called, approaching with a package under his arm. "Thought you might like some company." "Always," she smiled, indicating the empty chair beside her. He settled into it, stretching his long legs out before him. "Brought something for the little ones." He handed her the package, wrapped in brown paper. Olivia unwrapped it to find 2 small, beautifully crafted wooden horses, one painted chestnut, the other dappled gray. "Donovan, these are exquisite," she breathed, running her fingers over the smooth curves and detailed manes. "Figured they're old enough to start appreciating horses," he said, a slight flush coloring his cheekbones. "Every Wyoming child should know horses. They'll love them." "Thank you." She placed the toys carefully on the small table between their chairs. "You spoil them, you know." He shrugged. Easy to do. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sky turn from gold to deep purple. School board meeting went well today, he finally said. They've approved funding for next year, including a small raise for the teacher. That's wonderful news. Olivia had been concerned about the school's future, despite its success. The children have made such progress. You've done remarkable work. He turned to look at her, his face half in shadow. This community owes you a great debt. I'm the one who's grateful. When I stepped off that train to find Richard gone. She shook her head. I never imagined I'd find a home here. Is that what this is to you now? Home. The question seemed weighted with significance. Olivia chose her words carefully. Yes. The children are happy. I'm doing work I love, and the people here have become dear to me. She hesitated. Some more than others. His eyes held hers. Olivia. A sudden wail from inside the cabin interrupted whatever he had been about to say. Ethan was awake and making his displeasure known. I should go to him before he wakes Emma, Olivia said, rising quickly. Donovan stood as well. Of course. It's getting late anyway. When she returned after settling Ethan, Donovan was gone, his horse no longer at the hitching post. Only the wooden toys remained as evidence of his visit. Olivia touched the chestnut horse, wondering what he had been about to say, wondering if she had imagined the intensity in his eyes. The next morning brought unexpected news. Mrs. Feeney arrived at the schoolhouse just as lessons were beginning, her usually calm demeanor visibly rattled. Miss Barrett, you need to come quick. There's a man in town asking after you. Olivia's heart stuttered. A man? Did he give his name? Says he's Richard Holloway. The classroom seemed to tilt around her. That's impossible. He left the territory. Well, he's back, and he's asking all over town about the Boston lady and her twins. Mrs. Feeney's expression hardened. Said he was delayed by business and is here to fulfill his promise. Olivia gripped the edge of her desk to steady herself. What does Donovan say? He doesn't know yet. He rode out at first light to check on a sick mare at the north pasture. Won't be back till evening. One of the older students, 16-year-old Margaret Bennett, stepped forward. Miss Barrett, I can take over the class for today. My ma taught me how before you came. Olivia nodded gratefully. Thank you, Margaret. Children, please listen to Miss Bennett. I'll return as soon as possible. She hurried to Sarah's, her mind racing. Richard Holloway had abandoned her without a word, leaving her stranded with 2 infants. Now he was back? Why? What could he possibly want after all this time? Sarah was equally shocked by the news. The nerve of that man. After what he did. I need to see him, Olivia said firmly. I need to understand why he's returned. You're not going alone, Sarah declared. Jacob will take you. And the twins stay here with me. Olivia agreed, relieved that her children would be safely away from whatever confrontation awaited. The ride to town seemed interminable, though Jacob pushed the horses as fast as was safe. All the while, Olivia's thoughts churned. What would she say to Richard? What could he possibly say to justify his actions? They found him at the hotel, a slim man with sandy hair and a neatly trimmed mustache. He looked up as they entered the dining room, his face lighting with recognition. Olivia. At last, he rose, approaching with his hand extended. My dear, I've been searching everywhere for you. She ignored his hand. Mr. Holloway. This is unexpected. His smile faltered slightly. I know you must be confused. May we sit? I can explain everything. Jacob stepped forward. Miss Barrett, I'll be right outside if you need me. She nodded gratefully, then took a seat across from Richard, maintaining as much distance as the small table allowed. You look well, Richard said, his eyes assessing her. Town gossip says you've become the teacher at some new school. Yes. Now please explain why you've returned after abandoning me and my children at the train station 3 months ago. He had the grace to look embarrassed. A terrible misunderstanding. I was called away suddenly on urgent business, a mining opportunity in Montana that couldn't wait. I left word with the station master to explain. He received no such message, Olivia said coldly. He only knew you had sold your claim and left town. Miscommunication, then. These frontier towns, so disorganized. He waved a dismissive hand. The important thing is, I'm back now, ready to fulfill my promise. We can be married immediately. Olivia stared at him, incredulous. You cannot be serious. Of course I am. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. I understand you've been staying at the Reeves ranch. People talk, Olivia. It's not proper for an unmarried woman with children. We need to rectify this situation quickly. Anger flared within her. The situation that needs rectifying is your abandonment, Mr. Holloway. You left me with 2 infants and nowhere to go, in the dead of winter. An unfortunate circumstance, but all's well that ends well. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I've purchased a new claim, better than the last. Once we're married, we can put this unpleasantness behind us. Why would I possibly agree to marry you now? His expression hardened slightly. Because you're a respectable woman with 2 children and no husband. Because you came all this way for that very purpose. Because despite your temporary position as a schoolteacher, you need the security only a husband can provide. His words struck at her deepest insecurities, but Olivia found they no longer held the power they once might have. The past 3 months had taught her she was stronger than she knew. I'm declining your proposal, Mr. Holloway. My children and I are doing quite well without your assistance. He blinked, clearly surprised by her refusal. You're being hasty. Think of your reputation, of your children's future. I am thinking of their future. A future with a man who abandoned us once and would likely do so again at the first urgent business opportunity that arose. She stood. Goodbye, Mr. Holloway. Wait. He grabbed her wrist, his fingers digging in painfully. You don't understand. I've made arrangements. I've told people we're to be married. Let go of me. Not until you listen to reason. His voice lowered. I need a wife, Olivia. The territorial governor is appointing new officials, and married men are preferred. Your education, your Boston background, they make you an ideal candidate for a political wife. So that was it. Not love, not even basic decency, but political ambition had brought him back. Let go. She enunciated each word clearly. Is there a problem here? The deep voice came from behind her. Olivia turned to see Donovan standing in the doorway, his expression thunderous. Richard released her wrist immediately. No problem at all. Just a private conversation between my fiancé and myself. I am not your fiancé, Olivia said firmly. I never was. Donovan moved to her side. You all right? She nodded, rubbing her wrist where Richard's fingers had left red marks. Donovan's eyes narrowed at the sight. Miss Barrett has made her position clear, Holloway. I suggest you respect it. Richard stood, drawing himself up to his full height, still several inches shorter than Donovan. This is none of your concern, Reeves. The lady and I have an arrangement. Had, Olivia corrected. Past tense. And it ended the moment you abandoned me at the train station. A simple misunderstanding. Selling your claim and fleeing town isn't a misunderstanding, Donovan cut in. It's cowardice. Richard's face flushed. How dare you? Do you know who I am? Who my connections are? I know exactly who you are. Donovan's voice was dangerously quiet. A man who left a woman and 2 babies stranded in winter with nowhere to go. A man who returns only when it serves his interests. The twins, Richard said suddenly, looking around. Where are they? I should meet my stepchildren-to-be. They're not here, Olivia said. And they never will be your stepchildren. This is ridiculous. We had an agreement. Which you broke, she replied steadily. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a school to run and children to raise without your assistance. She turned to leave, Donovan at her side. This isn't over, Richard called after them. You'll see reason, Olivia. A woman in your position can't afford to be choosy. Donovan stopped, turning slowly. One more word, Holloway, and we'll see how your political aspirations fare with a broken jaw. The threat, delivered in that calm, measured voice, seemed to finally penetrate Richard's arrogance. He sat back down, lips pressed into a thin line. Outside, Jacob waited with the wagon. Everything all right, Miss Barrett? Yes, thank you, Jacob. She turned to Donovan. I thought you were checking the north pasture today. I was. Got word Holloway was in town asking about you. His eyes were still hard. Rode back as fast as I could. Something warm bloomed in her chest at his words. Thank you for coming. He helped her into the wagon, his hands gentle on her waist. Are you really all right? Yes. She met his gaze. Seeing him again, it confirmed what I already knew. Coming here was the right decision, even if it didn't happen the way I expected. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. I'll follow you back. Want to make sure Holloway doesn't get any ideas about pursuing this further. The ride back to the ranch was quiet, Olivia lost in thought. By the time they arrived, she had made up her mind about several things. Sarah was waiting anxiously, the twins crawling on a blanket in the yard under her watchful eye. Olivia gathered them close, breathing in their sweet, familiar scent. "What happened?" Sarah asked. Olivia explained the encounter, Richard's true motives, and his threats. "The nerve!" Sarah exclaimed. "As if you would ever consider marrying him now. He'll likely leave town once he realizes I'm serious about refusing him," Olivia said, hoping it was true. Donovan, who had been conferring with Jacob, approached. "I've asked Jacob to stay close to the school for the next few days, just in case Holloway decides to make trouble." "You think he might? Men like that don't take rejection well." His jaw tightened, "especially when it interferes with their ambitions." "I'm not afraid of him," Olivia declared. "No, I don't imagine you are." A hint of admiration colored his voice. Still, better safe than sorry. That evening, after putting the twins to bed, Olivia sat on her porch once more, watching the stars emerge in the vast Wyoming sky. The encounter with Richard had shaken her, but not in the way she might have expected. Instead of doubt or regret, she felt only certainty that she had made the right choice in refusing him, certainty that her future lay here in this community, and certainty about her feelings for Donovan Reeves. The sound of a horse approaching broke her reverie. Donovan appeared, dismounting and securing his horse before joining her on the porch. "Thought I'd check on you," he said, settling into the chair beside hers. "Make sure you're really all right." "I am," she assured him. "Better than all right, actually. Seeing Richard today clarified many things for me." "Oh." He turned to face her, his expression unreadable in the gathering darkness. "Yes." She took a deep breath. "I realized that what I thought I wanted 3 months ago, security, a husband, a father for my children, isn't what I truly need." "And what do you need?" His voice was soft, almost hesitant. "A partner. Someone who sees me as an equal, who respects my mind and my abilities. Someone who loves my children not out of obligation, but because they've captured his heart." She paused, gathering her courage. "Someone like you, Donovan." The silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant howl of a coyote. "Olivia." Her name was a whisper on his lips. "I'm not a man of many words. Never have been. But from the moment I saw you standing on that platform with your babies, something inside me knew." "Knew what?" she prompted when he fell silent again. "That you were the missing piece. That you and those twins belonged here, with me." He reached for her hand, his calloused fingers enveloping hers. "I've been building this ranch for years, but it wasn't a home until you arrived." Joy surged through her. "I feel the same way. This place, these people, you. It all feels right in a way nothing ever has before." In the silver moonlight, she could see his eyes, intense and filled with emotion. "I love you, Olivia Barrett. You and those babies. Have almost from the first day. And I love you," she whispered back, the words both terrifying and liberating. He moved from his chair to kneel before her, still holding her hand. "Then marry me. Not because you need security or protection, but because we belong together. Because those twins deserve a father who will love them as his own. Because I want to wake up every morning for the rest of my life with you beside me." Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I'll marry you." He rose, pulling her gently to her feet and into his arms. When his lips met hers, it was like coming home after a long journey, familiar and new all at once, filled with promise and belonging. Later, as they sat side by side, hands entwined, planning their future, Olivia marveled at the twists of fate that had brought her here. Richard Holloway's abandonment, which had seemed like disaster at the time, had led her to this moment, to this man, to this life that felt more right than anything she had ever known. "What are you thinking?" Donovan asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "That sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us to the best," she replied. "If Richard had been at the station that day, I never would have known you, never would have found this happiness." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Life has a way of working out, even when it seems darkest. Like when a mail-order bride is abandoned with twins, only to find a cowboy who says there is 2 now, she teased gently. His smile was tender as he brought her hand to his lips. Exactly like that. 3 weeks later, Olivia Barrett became Olivia Reeves in a simple ceremony at the schoolhouse she had helped create. Emma and Ethan, dressed in outfits Sarah had sewn specially for the occasion, were held by Jacob and Sarah during the vows. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Donovan didn't just kiss his bride, he bent down to place a gentle kiss on each twin's forehead as well. "My family," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "All of you." The celebration afterward was a community affair, with every family whose children attended the school contributing food, music, and congratulations. Even Mrs. Feeney danced, partnered by the station master who had first introduced Olivia to Donovan. As evening fell, they returned to the ranch house, their home now, truly and legally. Donovan carried the sleeping twins inside, laying them gently in their cradle in the room that had been prepared for them. "They didn't even stir," he whispered as he and Olivia watched their peaceful slumber. "They know they're home," she replied, leaning against his solid strength. "They've known it longer than I have, I think." He led her to the main room, where a fire crackled in the hearth and a bottle of wine, a wedding gift from Frank Bennett, waited with 2 glasses. "To new beginnings," Donovan toasted, handing her a glass. "And to happy endings," she added, touching her glass to his. Later, in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, as they lay entwined in each other's arms, Olivia whispered, "I never believed in fate until now." "No." His fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "No. But what else could have brought me thousands of miles to this exact place, to you?" He kissed her softly. "Whatever it was, I'm grateful for it every day." "As am I." She rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "As am I." 1 year later, Olivia stood on the porch of their expanded ranch house, watching as Donovan taught Emma and Ethan to feed a newborn foal from a bottle. At 18 months, the twins were sturdy and confident, following their adoptive father everywhere, mimicking his movements, soaking up his quiet strength and infinite patience. The school continued to thrive, with Olivia now teaching 3 days a week while a young woman she had trained handled the other 2 days. This arrangement allowed Olivia to balance her professional calling with her growing family. Richard Holloway had left Cottonwood Springs shortly after his confrontation with Olivia and Donovan, his political ambitions apparently taking him elsewhere. Occasionally, news would filter back about his activities in Cheyenne, but he was firmly in the past, a catalyst for change rather than a continuing presence in their lives. As she watched her husband and children, Olivia's hand drifted to her slightly rounded belly. In 5 months, their family would grow again, a new life created from their love. The sound of laughter drew her attention back to the scene before her. Ethan had managed to splash milk on Donovan's shirt, and Emma was giggling uncontrollably at her brother's antics. Instead of scolding, Donovan was laughing too, his face alight with joy. Catching sight of Olivia on the porch, he waved, then whispered something to the twins. All 3 turned to look at her, then began making their way toward the house, the children tottering on sturdy legs, Donovan's hands ready to catch them if they stumbled. "Mama," Emma called, her favorite word these days. "We're coming for you," Donovan called, a playful warning in his voice. Olivia laughed, opening her arms to receive her family, as they enveloped her in an embrace that smelled of hay and sunshine and love. She silently thanked whatever providence had guided her journey from abandonment to belonging, from solitude to this family that was now, indisputably and joyfully, hers. And in the years that followed, whenever anyone asked how she and Donovan had met, Olivia would smile and begin the tale with the words, "It was the worst day of my life that led me to the best." The twins, growing into strong, kind children with their mother's intelligence and their father's quiet determination, would listen to the story with varying degrees of interest as they aged. But the part they always loved best was when Donovan would interject, his voice still filled with wonder decades later. "The moment I saw them, I knew they were mine too." And Olivia, watching her husband surrounded by their children, the twins, and the 3 that followed, would remember that cold February day when a stranger had offered shelter to an abandoned woman and her babies, never imagining that in doing so, he was finding his own heart's home. The school they built together became the foundation of a proper town that grew around the crossroads near Donovan's ranch. The original schoolhouse was eventually replaced by a larger building, But Olivia insisted that the first simple structure be preserved as a reminder of beginnings and possibilities. And on their 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren, Donovan would take Olivia's hand still small in his weathered grasp and whisper, "Best decision I ever made, offering you shelter that day." To which she would always reply, her eyes still bright with love, "Best decision I ever made was accepting."